This is the 20th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, Aftco, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good evening. Late night edition of BTL, and there's only one reason for that. That's because we have a brand new Bassmaster Classic champion, a wire-to-wire victory for Alabama's Justin Hamner, 33 years old, one of the good guys in the sport. You know, sometimes they make a deal of, oh, he was working a full-time job or something, or this is a life-changing thing. No, he literally, I know this for a fact, was busting his ass mowing lawns 70 to 80 hours a week in the off weeks to pay for the Elite Series for the last 2 years. This past year, he got some sponsor dollars. I talked to him. He said, man, I've almost got my entry fees covered with sponsor dollars. He was pumped that he maybe wouldn't have to mow as many yards. He has a great first two tournaments of the 2024 season. Things are setting up for him coming into Tulsa for a hybrid forward-facing jerk bait, brush pile, jig bite. It's in his wheelhouse on a lake. He leads the thing wire to wire, 58 pounds, 3 ounces. Justin Hamner, you want to talk about a truly life-changing classic? Folks, we had one. We have a familiar panel of guests, just like we did the first night of late night BTL. Last night, folks, you can blame Luke Duncan for why there was not a show. I said it was kind of iffy. I was at the low budget live. He does a party every Saturday night and didn't get back till like 1 a.m. I considered firing it up. But hey, days 1 and days 3, we have the same familiar panel of guests. Pete Robbins, who was writing for Bass at this event. Also, him and his wife Hannah run Half Past First Cast. Dan O'Sullivan from Advanced Angler. And then hopefully, possibly, speculatively, we have Scott Palmer on. Scott Palmer owns the Bass Tank, the big logo on the side of Justin Hamner's boat. You know, Justin was in studio a month ago. We talked about how he had it rigged. He gave Scott a really nice shout out on stage, just kind of his initial. Scott's a little freaked out right now. He just had his title as only his main sponsored angler on the Elite Series win. So he went to the Champions Toast. If he's able to jump on, he's able to jump on. But we'll get right into the analysis with the man in Tulsa, fresh back from the Champions Toast. Pete, am I off base to say truly life-changing event for Justin Hamner today? What went down at the BOK Center?
There's no question about it whatsoever. He talked at the press conference today about a James River Open a few years ago where he literally had to dig change out of the seat cushions of his truck to get a cheeseburger to get home to his wife and kid. And now he has $300,000 and he has bass fishing immortality. I mean, I think that's why everyone who tournament fishes does it, is because there's always that chance that if you get that one break and that one opportunity, you can turn it around and become a major superstar.
Thinking back, has there ever been the last kind of like feel good classic win that I could think of, a guy at kind of a pivotal point of his career, would be 2012 and Chris Lane when he knelt down on that classic trophy, and we saw what he did after that win in 2012. Can you think of any other ones that have this much meaning personally to the angler as far as future financial stability, that type of thing? It's not like a KVD number 2, 3, 4 where it's business as usual and let's make room at the trophy case.
No, I don't think I can remember one that's this significant to the person's life, literally changing it. I mean, you think of a guy like that getting entry fees paid for the first time, that being a big deal, but entry fees still don't pay your mortgage. They don't pay your truck note. They don't put gas in it. They literally just pay one thing and you still have to catch them. But he's been catching the dog snot out of him for about a year, and he credited that to the fact that he didn't have the financial worries. You know, he had his lawn mowing business, which he sold. Before that, he poured concrete with his dad. Those are tough jobs. Fishing is certainly a tough job as well, but it's a different sort of tough job. And for him to have this opportunity, you feel good for the kid. I've only talked to him maybe 2 or 3 times over the years, but seeing him at his press conference and at the Champions Toast, you can tell he's someone who appreciates the trophy, who's going to do as much as he can with it. And who literally saw his life changed in the course of a week.
All right, let's talk a little fishing. Let's dive into it. All right, this classic on Grand Lake, I would say the gold standard has been, always will be, a 20-pound bag. On day one, we saw two 20-plus pound bags coming in. Hamner with 22.6, Cody Huff with 21.2. On day two, Hamner touched 20 pounds. There, I believe, was another cut. There was like two 20-pound bags also.
Brandon Card had one, I know for sure.
Yeah, he did. Okay, final day Bassmaster Classic. There was a 1914 by Corey Johnson, but man, Hamner had a 5 or 6 pound lead. You had Jason Christie in this, you had Luke Palmer in this, and there just wasn't a mega sack out there to be had. It seems like it's kind of weird. Typically, we see someone make a run at this thing, and this, there wasn't anyone who really made a run at this thing.
No, he led wire to wire, which is pretty darn impressive. He didn't back into it, but he didn't go full frontal. Full frontal is probably the wrong term. He didn't go hardcore in drive into it. I mean, if you remember, Edwin obviously slammed the door shut and came out of nowhere, whereas Cliff Pace had the 2 20-pound bags and then caught 11 pounds on the last day. And that was a much tougher tournament. But, a guy leads the Classic wire to wire in his, third, fourth Classic, having had one really good one before, maybe a second Classic, because he had that fourth place at Greenville a couple years ago. Give him a lot of credit. I think it was a good tournament. A lot of fish were caught, but I don't think it was a great tournament from a fishing perspective. Things were constantly changing, and even guys who figured them out had to figure them out again every day.
That's true. Jason Christie said something on stage that I think rang true. He said we were 2 weeks away from this being a blowout Classic, and he said 2 weeks earlier or 2 weeks later. This is kind of that time when those fish were moving. Let's talk about from how it went down on the standpoint. We had Justin Hamner, Adam Rasmussen, Cody Huff, Jay Shakur, Lee Livesey, Corey Johnson, Kyle Patrick, Hank Cherry, Shane LaHue, and then Taco E2 rounded out the top 10. From a fishing standpoint, all across the board, as far as tactics, techniques, how much electronics played or didn't play. You had guys who aren't scopers who kind of scoped. You had guys who are scopers who didn't scope at all. We saw bait casters, spinning rods, a myriad of it. At this time right now in the sport, Pete, is this the tournament we needed to kind of center ourselves and say, hey, the sky is not falling when it comes to how professional bass tournaments are won?
I think that's right. I mean, there's no question that people who think the sky is falling, it's going to be hard to convince them otherwise. But they asked them at the press conference, how many of you guys used forward-facing sonar and to what extent? And it was everything from, I think, Adam Rasmussen in second used it about 70% of the time. Lee Livesey said he never turned his graphs on. So this was a classic power fishing tournament. It was a spot tournament and a pattern tournament. It was kind of a mix of things, but it came down to a spinnerbait, a jig, and a jerkbait. And I think that's good for everyone who thinks it's all about the minnow bite all the time.
It is. I do want to bring this up. Blue Cat says, right when it looked like forward-facing wasn't going to play much of the role, both Hamner and Huff belly hooked a couple hogs on jerkbait with forward-facing sonar. I hate to break it to you guys, but every single year and every single tournament where there's been crankbaits in play and jerkbaits in play, long before forward-facing sonar was ever a thing and anyone had ever thought about it, there's been a lot of fish that have been weighed in that are hooked in the back, in the side, in the belly, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's 100% above board. Totally legit. When you have fish slashing at it, it's going to happen. In fact, they played them on the replay on the big screen. I know I've seen it on the message boards. I've seen people say it. It chaps me when guys go down that route on it. It's always been that way. It always will be that way. And there's zero snagging or anything like that involved. That's just the nature of the beast when you're dealing with 9 points on a bait that you're jerking in the spring.
I think you're right. I mean, it comes down to here. Forward-facing sonar is here, at least for the time being. People are going to use it as much as they can and as much as they need to, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the dominant tool. And a lot of these guys made clear that it wasn't their dominant tool. In fact, Kyle Patrick told me something pretty interesting. He said he had to turn it off at times because he can see those shallow fish eating his jig and he pulls it away from him a lot of times. So by turning it off, he actually gives himself an advantage. A lot of those guys, even if they were using it, it wasn't what made those fish bite. It wasn't what helped them find their fish. I think the jury is still out on whether we're going to need to eventually limit it, but this tournament is an example of why it's not going to win every tournament out there. The dude just won $300,000, and my feeling is he would have won it just as easily without it.
I agree. I thought it was awesome to see Corey Huff up there shallow. I like Lee Livesey. I mean, dude, we had the jig behind the docks with the cables that came into play like it always does on Grand. He had a top 5 finish. You had a very international top 10 as well. You had Corey Johnson that ended up in 6th. You had Taku Itu who ended up with a top 10 finish. He seemed to be the only guy who was able to really just focus on the balls of bait that we were wondering how much it would play a role. Hamner actually had to get away from the bait. And then to me, watching live, Pete, I don't know if you got a chance to talk to him or not, but it seemed like, he went 22, 6 and 20. It seemed today like he was really trying to put something on the board and make Adam Rasmussen catch him. I got that feeling like he wasn't trying to blow this thing out of the water with another 20-pound bag, but he was trying to hit that 13 to 15, 16-pound mark and say, there's been 4 20-pound bags over the last 4 days. Massive weather change. Come catch me, boys. I did my job.
Yeah. I mean, as well as I do, you're a more serious tournament fisherman than I do. Sometimes when you fish conservatively, you end up crapping the bed because you just don't go out and do what you're meant to do. But he was fluid enough, it felt like, that he knew he was going to get his one way or the other. Maybe not a 20-pound bag, but a big enough bag that you're right. Someone was going to have to beat him. He wasn't going to lose the title.
All right. Anything else that stood out with you? How'd the champions toast go? Emotional?
Emotional. He was emotional at the press conference. He mentioned his dad taking a lot of poops today. He came in, the key sign, the key moment of him coming in carrying the trophy is he had to walk down the length of a full buffet, and carrying the trophy in one hand, he stopped halfway down the buffet and grabbed a chicken wing or a shrimp or something like that. The takeaway I have from this is if you look at that top 10, someone new was going to win, and novelty or change makes people nervous. People are nervous in the sport right now, whether it's manufacturers or older anglers or people in general. I worried, what kind of champion is this guy going to be? And judging from the number of 402 shirts and hats that we saw zipping around the expo, clearly Milliken is going to be a force both on the water and off the water for a while. I almost said it the Marty Stoneway. Things are changing fast in this sport, and that's scary as hell. And the only thing I can say is Mike Iaconelli just went into the Hall of Fame last year. 25 years ago, Mike Iaconelli was the Ben Milliken or the Justin Hamner who was threatening the existing order. And so I'm not saying change is always good, but we need to embrace it where it is good.
I saw you in the expo a couple times throughout the week, Pete. Kind of talk about your thoughts on what you thought in general about the expo, how Tulsa did the classic, the layout, and then particularly the final day weigh-in. I know that's always a topic of discussion.
Loved the building for the expo. I thought it was easy to get around. You didn't have to find little hidden hidey holes or go into a different building. There was enough space in the aisles to go see people and to see your favorite anglers. Saw a fair number of BPT anglers there, which I thought was a good thing. A fair number of guys making the transition from the opens, like the Cody Myers and Ishman Rose and Mike McClellans. It was a good expo. People were spending money. It was cool to see the swim bait guys there with people lining up to spend a lot of money with them. I mean, I think that goes to my point of innovation. If you're doing something a little bit different that excites people, there's still a lot of opportunity in this sport, whether you're a young angler or someone making a creative bait. As for the weigh-in, I don't know, man. I'm kind of jaded. Bass Track is a great thing to have because we know what's going on. You get invested in stories, but it does take some of the drama away of a weigh-in. And, to be honest, I kind of wrote my story, pre-wrote some of my notes and quotes around the idea that Hamner was going to win. I certainly would have changed it up had he not won, but knowing that it's different than the old days where someone would come in and drop a 20 or 30-pound bag on the scales the last day and change things. So technology is good. Everything has its upside and downside.
It is one of the things I was super impressed with. And folks, we're going to really dive into this this week on Post Classic Week on BTL. We're just going to go for a few minutes. I know you've had a long day. You were scarfing down. It looked like oatmeal or something.
Cereal.
You're scarfing down cereal.
I've eaten like a third grader this week. One day I had chicken fingers for lunch and for dinner. Today, I had a BLT and fries for lunch and some chicken fingers and cookies in the media room and now cereal. So that's the glory.
And your night isn't even done. And then you probably fly back bright and early tomorrow to the East Coast.
We're in Tulsa till 5 tomorrow. So my wife wants to go to a museum, or a museum was recommended to her. I'm hoping to find a tackle store.
It is. Okay. Tulsa. Yeah. Well, you're going to go to a tackle store after the Classic Expo.
All I bought at the Classic Expo was I bought 2 of the Rick Clunn Ricos.
And I got my hands on one of those.
And I ran into my friend Hideki of Tackle Lures, and he gave me, there's a new super kick knocker, like a 6-inch long Vixen style bait. And I got a hold of one of those from him, but that's all I got all weekend.
All right. Well, thank you for jumping on late night, 2 of the 3 nights that we had shows. Great insight, Pete. Always enjoy your insight. Like I said on the first night, check out Half Pass First Cast. You and Hannah do a great job of offering a lot of insight in the industry and some one-of-a-kind trips. Anything else you want to add before we kind of wrap up the late night portion with you tonight?
No, I'm ready. This makes me want to go fish. So I have to go back to work on Tuesday, but on Saturday I will be on the lake somewhere.
All right. Thanks for jumping on, Pete.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. That is Pete Robbins. I'm looking kind of through the standings there at the favorites there. Jason Christie finishes 17th. I don't think he's crushed about this one. Obviously, he would like to have won. He would have liked to have been in that Super 6. He'd have liked to have been in the hot seat at the end of it. I know that he was extremely focused going into this Classic. Some of the things that he did to take out controllable variables, some of the things that he did to eliminate distractions in this Classic on Grand Lake. And he said it on stage, it just didn't work out for me. I had one really good day where he vaulted into the top 12. I believe it was in 12th going to the final day. He had 18-2 yesterday and then came in with 13-6. I know for a fact he was doing big fish stuff. We saw Adam Rasmussen get the spinnerbait going, the single Colorado blade, but he was doing it on some unique stuff. He was doing it on some shallow offshore brush in horse, and there just didn't seem to be a comeback bag or a get back bag when you're a couple pounds back. And Hamner really used that almost 6-pound lead that he had going into the final day to hold off Rasmussen, who represented the Bass Open very well. Really enjoyed watching him. And I don't know about Dano's signal. We'll add him to the stage. And yep, I don't think we're going to get a great signal from Dan O'Sullivan. So we may not have Dan O'Sullivan on, but just like we did on the first night, we do have some advanced angler, which is where Dano posts all of his information, some advanced angler footage, fresh from the press room, about a minute and a half with Justin Hamner. So I will get that queued up and we will hear what Justin Hamner had to say about winning the 2024 Bassmaster Classic. Here it is.
Justin, here you are. I got to meet you 4.5 years ago, saw the start of this whole thing, and now here you are, Classic champion. What's it feel like?
I still don't know yet. Yeah, it's freaking awesome, though. What I'm feeling right now is pretty dang good.
Your jerkbait pattern this week, was it literally just look and see and throw? Is that what you were doing? Or did you have something that was...
It was more of throw and see what fish or how the fish reacted to my bait, because there's so many different types of fish in this lake that I literally just have to throw my bait out there, and then if I see something following it, it was a pass.
So you had a bunch of support coming in, and you seem like freer than I've ever seen you before. I've known you now a little while. What was it? That just 1 or 2 deals that came together, or what was it?
It was just about putting something in my hand that I was confident in and just not even worried about it.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you again later, brother. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you all.
All right. There it is. Justin Hamner talking about his Bassmaster Classic win. And Dano doesn't have a good signal. And Scott is currently still at the Champions Toast working with Justin Hamner. So interesting week of BTL. Hopefully sometime tomorrow on Monday, we'll be live at 8:30 a.m. Central Time, BTL. Then following that, Gretchen and Katie from St. Jude, who I talked about, were at the Bassmaster Classic, taking it all in, seeing what it's all about. I'm actually going to get them out on the water tomorrow in the Bass Cat and try to get them to catch a bass. Neither of them has ever been bass fishing. So they're in Oklahoma. They don't fly out to the next day. We'll jump on that. But sometime this week, we will have Justin Hamner on, really go in depth on the Bassmaster Classic. And then also we are going to do a live show, a day 4 show with Uncle Frank on Wednesday night, not Thursday morning. It's Easter weekend, and I'm actually flying out Thursday morning. So Wednesday night, we'll have Frank. Listen, folks, if you're at the Bassmaster Classic, if you're watching this, to say it, incredible expo as far as coming out and meeting the viewers and listeners of BTL. I expected it, being in Oklahoma with Mark Jeffrey starting Fish OK in Oklahoma in the late 1990s. There's a lot of supporters of the Bass Talk Live and the Bass Zone brand that have kind of grown up with it. It's been a staple in Oklahoma for almost 3 decades. 3 decades now. Wow, that's hard to say, but really cool. If you look in the background there already, Alan, I met him yesterday. He's a teacher, and it goes by entertain, educate, and engage, which is the 3 E's for BTL. He gave me an apple, and he put a little note in there. He just gave it to me. He closed. He said, "Thanks for what you do for the anglers." And Alan, the school teacher, Pinhook Fishing Club. So a little like a glass apple. So that was really cool. Also met and had incredible conversations. We gave out 600 color number 7 one knocker Zara Spooks at the LureNet booth this week. Uncle Frank signed autographs with a silver and black Sharpie until his hand cramped. Him and Frankie Jr. are currently en route back to Ohio. So Wednesday night, we'll get on. We'll dive into all of that. We'll talk about all things Expo. Mark Jeffries made an appearance on Saturday as well. He got around the Expo. Now, we didn't have the odds show for BTL this year, but we're going to have Mark Jeffries rate the Bassmaster Classic. Since he wasn't on the inside this year, he just went, he experienced the Expo. I know he followed it from the home, so we're going to get him to get on and get his take. And then all things classic baits, Grand Lake, hopefully through the late night shows, through the lake breakdown with Johnny Schultz, through the day 4s with Uncle Frank, and the interviews leading up to it, you guys were able to experience the Classic and get a little bit of a behind the scenes look. Before I get out of here, I do want to mention ATS Pretty came through. These are the new BTL apparel. The apparel line is in, and that goes live tomorrow morning. Monday morning, I will have the link up on the website, on my social media, at Matt Pangrak, on Instagram. It's a cool drop. I think Uncle Frank's signature series pieces turned out really well. This is a high-end sweatshirt. I'll have pictures of it. Kind of went with a new logo, a new circle logo. So a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot. I have quite a few people that were like, man, when's the merch drop? When's the merch drop? So before I opened it, I wanted to get a feel of it. I'm actually kind of sweating in this, but it's a really high quality hoodie. Same with the t-shirts. Same with the hats, everything. So we'll do another merch drop in like June or July with the rubber logo and a second additional Uncle Frank shirt, but tomorrow. So the way they do this, it makes it economically feasible for me, so I don't end up with either too few of something or too many of anything, is they open the store up for 2 weeks. So the store opens on the 25th. You'll have 14 days to order your items. As soon as it's closed, then they'll run it all and print it to you. But big shout out to the BTL Nation, the BTL family, for coming out. And I think we're going to wrap things up for now. I'm exhausted. Been driving back and forth from the studio to Tulsa 3 days in a row. But we'll rank the Classic. We'll dive into the Expo some more. We'll dive into the fishing. We'll dive into the tactics, techniques, and baits, and we'll have a full week of BTL. Stay tuned to BassZone.com for the upcoming schedule. But until then, thanks for jumping on BTL Late Night. Thanks for Pete Robbins jumping on and giving us his thoughts. Thanks for Dan O'Sullivan for trying You can't do much when you're outside of a hotel. He's not in his hotel room. He's still working. And we will also get Scott Palmer on, because this is one of the cool advantages to take care of a sponsor. Dude, we're going to get a chance to see what it's like as a title sponsor, someone who's in the industry. You saw the Bass Tank on the side of Hamner's boat, all of his electronics rigged by the Bass Tank, on what that means to a company like the Bass Tank right up the road in Oklahoma. So, all right, that's it for Classic Week. Tomorrow, it's just Monday. It's hard to believe. It's here and gone, the 2024 Bassmaster Classic. Before we know it, we'll be down in old Fort Worth tearing down Billy Bob's on Lake Ray Roberts. So, all right, that's it. That's all we got for tonight. We'll see everybody bright and early tomorrow morning. Later.